Random Lists is all about lists Waypoint Overland has created on an array of topics, such as top 5 national parks, top 10 trails in the United States, top 10 fill in the blank. I think you get it. Some lists will be pure fun, and others very informational. But they all will have a connection to overlanding in some way. We're very interested in hearing your suggestions for upcoming lists in the comments. Now, here's our random list.
My random list this week is my top 5 people who inspired me to explore. The people on this list have all inspired me in many different ways. However, they do have things that stand out to me and are common amongst them all. They all saw the world as their oyster. I get the impression they all feel you can achieve anything you wish in life, that you should go anywhere because you have the opportunity or the ability to do so. And if you're willing to explore, you can experience something special during this life. With that, at number 1 is Jacques Cousteau. He was a French naval officer, explorer, conservationist, filmmaker, innovator, scientist, photographer, author, and researcher who studied the sea and all forms of life and water. Most people will know him as the creator of the series The Underworld of Jacques Cousteau. And he was the commander who always wore the red bonnet. I grew up watching this series, and it was one of my first inspirations to explore. The television series ran for 10 years, and there was a second documentary series called The Cousteau Odyssey that ran on public television stations. If you can find either one, I highly recommend you watching them. These shows were an early inspirations for me and the desire to explore. It left an indelible mark on me for sure. A lot of the things that are common knowledge about the sea now were discovered on the show. Some of the inventions that we take for granted today, they were invented by Jacques Cousteau. He co-developed the aqualung, or self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, more commonly known today as scuba gear, which enables safe and deeper dives. Before that, divers were only able to explore the sea using diving bells, or helmeted diving suits, which were cumbersome and expensive. Please Google him. Read about all his exploits. Trust me. I have at number 2, Charles Carroll. He was an American journalist. He was most widely known for his long career with CBS. First, for his on-the-road segments on the CBS News with Walter Cronkite, and later as the first anchor of CBS News Sunday Morning, a position he held for 15 years. He had an enormous and loyal following with fans everywhere of all ages. On the evening news and Sunday mornings, he gave us tales of the ordinary and the offbeat. He shared tales of cowboys, farmers, horse traders, mushroom hunters, sculptors, lobstermen, grave diggers, veterans, brickmakers, hippies. He brought everybody to us, right in our homes. In my opinion, he was the first Instagram, giving us a snapshot of what America really is. At number 3, in my opinion, a name that should be far more recognizable is James Beckwourth. James Beckworth was an American mountain man, fur trader, and explorer. Beckworth was also famously known as Bloody Arm because of his skills as a fighter. He was mixed-raced and born into slavery in Virginia. He was freed by his white father and apprenticed to a blacksmith so that he could learn a trade. Now, what makes him number 3 on my list is that he had a major contribution to Western America's early exploration. He documented and recorded his journeys from Florida's Everglades to the Pacific Ocean, as well as from Canada's south to Mexico's north. I discovered his story from his autobiography published in 1856 called The Life and Adventures of J.P. Beckwourth, Mountaineer, Scout, and Pioneer, and Chief of the Crow Nations of Indians. I've learned more about Indian ways, their culture, battle tactics, geography, and historical events than any other book I have ever read. I would wake up in the morning with the book draped on my chest because I fell asleep reading it all night. I had it finished in a few days. I loved reading about him riding 2,750 miles in 50 days by horse over all types of terrain and crazy weather. Also, how he became the chief of the Crow Nation of Indians. That's just a couple of the incredible and true stories in the book. I'll leave a link to the book if you're interested. Now, this is a name, or I should say names, that everyone knows. At number 4, we have Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. You can't seem to go anywhere in the United States without passing a sign, a monument, or something that memorializes the Lewis and Clark expedition. And to tell you the truth, I'm kind of obsessed with their expedition. I've read so many books, so many articles. I've watched so many documentaries, visited so many historical sites from their expedition all across the country. And the more I learn, the more I'm intrigued with the story. It's basically President Thomas Jefferson commissioned Lewis and Clark to explore and map the newly acquired territories from the Louisiana Purchase. They were asked to find a practical route across the western half of the continent and to establish an American presence in the territory. They also had a secondary objective, which was scientific and economic, like studying area plans, animal life, geography, and to establish trade with local American Indian tribes. The expedition returned to St. Louis to report its findings to Jefferson with maps, sketches, and journals in hand. Now, that's a very simplified overview of their journey, but I encourage you to do just a little research. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Next on my list, at number 5, is someone that may be on your list. He's definitely on somebody's list. At number 5, I have Ernest Hemingway. Most know Hemingway as an American novelist, short story writer, journalist, and maybe a sportsman. What drew me to his story was his adventurous lifestyle and his public image. During the First World War, he volunteered to serve in Italy as an ambulance driver with the American Red Cross. He was wounded by Austrian mortar fire. He was a reporter for the Kansas City Star. He lived in Paris in the 1920s. He traveled all over the world, from Paris to Key West to the East African plains, on all sorts of adventures. He was a big game hunter and went on safaris in Kenya and Tanzania. He hunted Cape buffalo, lions, and rhinos. He loved deep-sea fishing off the Cuban coast and exploring the warm waters of the Caribbean, where he spent a great deal of time fishing for marlin. He basically saw it all, and he did it all. If that's not enough for you, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for Literature in 1954. He was also awarded the Pulitzer Prize, and several of his books were made into movies. Now me, I've always loved Hemingway's aesthetic. I carry a moleskin and a nice pen to this day because he did. And I thirst for adventure like him as well. Well, that's my list. My very personal list. These are people who have inspired me, and they continue to do so. Maybe they'll spark something in you.